Executive Show. Every week we go straight to the offices of 3rd and King and hear from the guys who are calling the shots for the Orange and Black. Now, here are Murph and Markus with Giants manager Tony Vitello on the Sports Leader.
It is the Giants Executive Show on the Murph and Markus Show. John Dickinson filling in for Brian Murphy today, and we should let you know that the Giants Executive Show is sponsored by Benjamin Moore Paint. Experience the Benjamin Moore retail difference at our independently owned authorized retailers today at benjaminmoore.com. And joining us now on the UMA guest line on the Giants Executive Show is the skipper of the San Francisco Giants, Tony Vitello. Tony, I know it was a long day at the ballpark yesterday. I know there's been some bad weather in Atlanta, but really appreciate you taking a few minutes this morning to join myself and John Dickinson on the Murph and Markus Show.
Yeah, you bet, guys. My pleasure.
No worries, Tony. Now, coming off of 2 big wins yesterday, a lot of offense and a lot of pitching to get into, but let's go big picture. What did 2 wins against one of the best teams in baseball, with the best record in baseball, tell you about this team?
I think a little bit of kind of what we learned when we went to L.A. and split a 4-game series there. Same thing going to Milwaukee. You're on the road in all 3 cases and 3 of the better teams in baseball. And, you know, baseball is baseball, so you could argue, well, we could have lost 3, we could have won 3. You could win every game, lose every game. But I think when all is said and done, this team can compete against anybody when we're playing at our best. And if anything, I do think some things are trending in the right direction, in particular the offense.
Yeah, and I mean, is there something maybe – I know the offensive the numbers in terms of the improvement goes – it predates the series even in Milwaukee, but really since that Logan Webb start in Milwaukee where you guys won the 1-0 game, it feels like you guys have played crisper, more competitive – feistier baseball, win or lose. And obviously you had the big comeback a week ago and all that. Do you see that? And what are some of the tangible reasons why maybe over the last 2 weeks it's looked a little bit more like what you maybe expected it to be for the whole year?
Yeah, and really the thing I keep dating back to is Tampa. I thought when we got back from that road trip, guys started to put together more quality at-bats. There was a different vibe in the dugout and on the field. Whether that shines through every day, it is a sport with a lot of sample size and repetitions. But I think kind of narrowing it down to your time frame, I mean, leaders matter, and it's a little bit different era. I think there's not as much, you know, Peyton Manning or guys, you know, no one's throwing anybody up against a locker and saying we have to do this or this is how you do things. I think leadership is kind of more by example and by vibe these days in a lot of sports. And for ours in particular, Webby, when he takes the ball, he sets the tone. I mean, the guy's the definition of a bulldog. And it doesn't make sense for you if you're standing behind him on defense or you're going up to the plate on his day he's throwing to not get in there and compete with kind of that same flavor. And it works too. So I think guys get positive feedback off that approach, and it sets a tone. And we've kind of gotten in a rhythm, like you said, the last couple of weeks of playing with that energy that's a little bit different.
Tony, it seems like Bryce Eldridge has definitely provided a spark to this lineup since he's been getting consistent playing time every single day. He's currently on a 22 on-game base streak. We saw a home run yesterday in Game 2 of the doubleheader. Also saw the walk-off grand slam last Wednesday. Talk to us about that moment for Bryce Eldridge. He spoke to the media after the game and said he wants to be the face of this franchise. Seems like this guy has a confidence level that is higher than most people at 21 years old in and out of the box, Tony.
Yeah, and I think it's real confidence. There's not any trying to emulate other stars or try and have any fake swagger. It's just a sincere feeling and self-belief that he has going on, and incredibly mature. I know I've said it over and over again, but incredibly mature for any age, just as a person. Like you said, he's got that confidence off the field. But on the field, you always want to get positive feedback. You know, yesterday he hit a home run, but he also hammered one that he thought was going to go out. I thought was going to go out, gets caught at the wall. If you had that over and over again, you'd start to get frustrated. But when you hit a grand slam like that, you kind of start to realize there is no moment where you can't shine. And that was just a huge moment for him. Obviously, the team, it's at the very least, you know, we definitely want to get our record back to where Giants fans stick their chest out. But moments like that can make a season, or at least make somebody's day when they come to the ballpark. And a really cool thing about it was Bryce putting the exclamation point on it, but so many guys in the lineup made that happen as we started the comeback once Chappie hit a home run.
The decision to move him up in the lineup, obviously hotter hitters are going to move up. That's typically how it works. But where do you think he fits best in the lineup, and how tricky has it been as guys have gotten hotter and performed better to find the balance between on base and power and contact guys like a Rise and Jung-Hoo Lee in terms of balancing it out and lengthening it out to where you can get the production throughout?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, when the season started, I think everybody thought we had some good problems and could really create some length with the lineup. And I think there's some of that going on now, but there is a consistent kind of juggling act of you got veterans, and certain guys are much more comfortable in spots. Certain guys expect to be in spots. You got the really two high contact guys, but aren't going to walk frequently with Jung-Hoo and Louis. I think it's good to have them spaced out to some extent. But to get back more to Bryce, I don't read into everything or listen to everything on the radio and things like that, but it's pretty easy to figure out he's a hot button topic anytime his name comes up or being in the lineup. And when he first got with us, the original plan was to sprinkle in some first base here and there, DH him every time we're seeing a righty, and then find other spots too, and kind of try and put him in a spot where you build confidence. You don't break him down. And he's too good. He's ready to take on any responsibility you want to give him. And as a guy who can drive the ball out of the park, but also draw a walk, move runners, and put together a complete at-bat, it only makes sense to try and get him as many at-bats as possible in the lineup. We even flirted with talking about the one spot, but in the two spot, it gives him an opportunity to hit almost as much as any guy in the lineup.
Tony Vitello is the voice here this morning on the Giants Executive Show, sponsored by Redwood Credit Union. For you, for community, for 75 years. Join RCU today at redwoodcu.org. And Tony, a lot of focus on the offensive performance yesterday. Let's get into some of these pitching performances. Robbie Ray starts the continuation game, has a great outing, but then you double down with another southpaw. Carson Whisenhunt makes his season debut. Now, I know that you guys have already announced the news that he will be headed back to Sacramento after adding him to the 27th man on the roster. But just your thoughts on what you saw yesterday in your season debut from Carson Whisenhunt, and how much of a different pitcher he might have looked like from what you saw from him during spring training.
I thought the intangibles were the part that stood out as different in spring training, and I've learned, having gone through spring training once, I at least kind of have my own concepts, and I feel like I ask questions to the right people. You got to take some things there with a grain of salt, but at the same time, those guys are competing. And I felt like in spring training, when he got frustrated, things went faster and he started moving faster. And if he was angry, he'd be jumping off the rubber. And yesterday looked like smooth sailing in the box score. But if you watch the game, I mean, he had to get through a lot of traffic, some tough ABs in there. And his poise and composure was the thing that stuck out the most to me. And if you talk to the players, which I kind of like quizzing them after the outing, guys like Webby and others, what they thought. They all believe in this kid, and a lot of it has to do with the intangibles. He's not scared, and as he matures and gets older, that composure and poise factors becoming to look a little bit more like Robbie Ray as opposed to looking like a rookie.
Take us through the decision to have Robbie throw the continued game, the game that was suspended the other night, and then have Carson throw the second game, because it wasn't the first thing I would have thought, but when it was announced, it made a lot of sense, to me at least, to get Robbie in there with a lead against a lefty stacked lineup maybe that was trying to attack Hauser. It seemed like a really sharp move, and it played out pretty well. But what was the thought process on your guys' part as a staff?
Yeah, it was just an overall baseball conversation for the most part, but the things that were embedded in there as factors, like you said, was we had a lead. Robbie's ultra consistent. The one thing about Robbie is the pitch count will climb, relatively quickly. So rarely are you trying to thinking you're going to get 7 or 8. And with one inning already off the board, now if he can give you what he gave us, I mean, he made it look smart. Now you're deep into the game and can kind of go to your plan A out of the bullpen. But the lineup part too was big. They were kind of already situated with what they had going on. The pitch count was a factor in the other two things you mentioned as well.
Caleb Killian ended up closing out game one in a 7-2 ball game. Now, Tony, technically it wasn't a safe situation. There was some traffic on the base pass. So what can you tell us about that decision to use your closer in that situation, knowing that you had a second game to still play that day?
Yeah, I think a little bit of it was, to be fair, another part of the decision was Carson Wisenhunt had to travel that day. So for him to start the first game, we would have had to done some unique things travel-wise. And a guy on very little sleep performing the way he did was amazing. But you kind of don't know what's going to happen in game two. So instead of preparing for imaginary scenarios, which that's all they are at the time, we didn't want to mess around. We felt like our guys played well and had a win in front of them. Because there was a doubleheader, we didn't want to, let's try this, but if it doesn't work out, let's go to this guy. And now you end up using 3 or 4 guys out of the bullpen in game one. We wanted to slam the door. And, Smitty was juiced. He was wanting to finish that thing off. It would have ended up being a pretty good workload if he would have had to get the final 3 outs. But the biggest thing for us out of the whole deal was Baldwin's up, unfortunately now, and it's against us. He's got the furthest home run in Major League Baseball. But if 2 guys get on, Olson's up as the tying run. And if 1 guy gets on, Olson's up with an opportunity to bring it within 1. And, with Riley and those other guys in that park, I mean, I don't think people realize this park is the 3rd highest altitude in Major League Baseball. So when a ball goes in the air, it's always got a chance to leave. So, again, rather than, play it a little risky, we wanted to slam the door.
Yeah, and you slammed the door twice yesterday with Caleb Killian in the first game. Tristan Beck comes in and closes it out the 9th and gets the save yesterday in the second game of the doubleheader. But, Tony, big picture question for you on the bullpen. Nearly halfway through your first Major League season, outside of the workload and the obvious answer, what do you think has been the biggest difference or maybe the biggest challenges for you managing a bullpen at the pro level versus managing it at the college level?
Well, I think at the start, and yesterday it occurred with Braves fans, I mean, I kind of knew, but I didn't know to the extent, and I don't think the average fan knows. If it doesn't go well, like in Chicago, our best offensive day, those people are all over Counsell to go to the bullpen in the 2nd, 3rd inning, and he's probably as competitive as that guy was as a player. He's probably dying to go, but you can't do that. As someone who wants to win every game possible, you hate conceding when it's not going well for a guy, but that's kind of been the first part to learn. And then the next one is just making sure we script out what does the next 4 or 5 days look like based off where we're at. In a daily conversation too of if we use this guy, he's going to be down the next day. And then something that's come up as of late too, as part of a learning process is we've just started to involve everybody in our conversations before the game, whether it's Buster, Zach, anybody from the front office, Gresh, making sure we have the right input on who's available, and if they are available, how would we grade them out? Is it going to be an emergency only deal where a guy's might be gassed out or something like that, and then of course we get into the matchups and all that stuff too.
Tony, got to ask you, the reports that the front office is open to maybe listening to offers on some of the veterans, some of the guys who were brought in to be carriers, Devers, Chapman, Adames. With some of those trade rumors now swirling, how do you keep everybody focused, or are those guys that you don't even necessarily have to worry about?
Yeah, there's been some side conversations, obviously, just because I ask guys like, well, why do you look at this on social media or that? These guys are sports fans and they want to know what's going on in the world of sports, but a lot of them dig, kind of knowing the ins and outs of what people are thinking of what's going on. So stuff like that naturally comes up. I do think my answer, I think, was before the game yesterday, talked about the same topic. It sincerely is a deal that everybody in Major League Baseball should be doing of we're open to any conversation. And I really think it's a general deal that's going on. I'm not in a position to make decisions, and I'm not in every meeting, but these guys have been awesome to me and the other coaches about just communicating everything, what we're doing with Whisenhunt, stuff like that. And I think it only makes sense as the trade deadline looms eventually here for anybody to entertain any conversation. It doesn't mean you're necessarily going to do it. And kind of live that out for the first time in spring training on how this stuff goes down. And I think what actually happens is a much narrower tunnel than what's, kind of initially being put out there and what those general conversations are of, you want to talk, let's talk. And I think, unfortunately, our record, trust me, no one wants it to be better than I do. But I think if our record was different, it would have a different tone to it. Now people jump to a conclusion like, it's a fire sale or something like that.
That being said, do you believe that maybe some of those rumors in the public can act as a message, as hey, this is sort of the last stand here, the next month or whatever time it is? Like, if we're going to get hot, we got to get hot now, or is that something we make too much of?
No, I think it can. I mean, the mind is the most powerful thing in sports, and it's been interesting to see what things kind of get a guy going at this level compared to younger kids. And the bottom line is, Michael Jordan was as good of an example as anyone. Even if you got to make stuff up, anything to get you on that particular day locked in, because it is day after day after day, and you got to find a way to make each day unique. And, no matter what's out there or what the schedule looks like, a lot's been made of our travel and, night game against the Cubs. And it's kind of up to the athlete, and I guess us coaches too, to make whatever circumstances there are positive and make them work for us as opposed to against us.
Last couple minutes here with Tony Vitello on the UMA Guest Line on the San Francisco Giants Executive Show. And Tony, circling back to some of the younger players on the roster and the opportunities that could be out there moving forward. Now, I know that Tyler Malley just had a rehab start in Sacramento, so it sounds like he's on track to maybe return to the rotation, which leads you to a decision about what you're going to do with that rotation with guys like Trevor McDonald, or even in an earlier conversation about a guy like Carson Whisenhunt. But I'm curious, at this point of the season, with your record being 31-43, approaching a midway point, when do you start factoring in the discussion between giving some of the younger guys opportunities versus some of the veterans who have maybe not performed up to their level of expectations?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of like the bullpen conversation we had the other day. It's like, early on, there was a lack of information on guys just by nature of roles and things like that. But we're pretty deep into the season now, and I think there's a fair enough sample size to judge how a guy is doing at a particular position or a certain spot on the mound. And, I think some guys have solidified they can do this, and there's other guys, if it's a question mark, then I think we got to look at, making some adjustments. And that may just lead to rearranging things, or it may lead to a thing that's probably most exciting for fans is an opportunity for a young guy. How it comes, when it comes, if it's tied into, the conversation we're having right now, a guy like Whisenhunt, he's going to get his opportunity again, I think, sooner than later. And whenever it happens, I think you're going to continue to see progress out of the kid.
I don't want to ask you to play weatherman, Tony, but I'm going to ask you to play weatherman. What? How likely is it that the game's going to get in tonight? And obviously, last game of a series, night game. You guys do have to travel, although not too far down to Miami. But what are you hearing on tonight's game being played or not?
Yeah, I think it depends on what weather app you use. We had about 7 different ones going yesterday, kind of looking at this thing, and we want to play. And we definitely don't want to have to come back here for one day, but, the club feels good about themselves. We are playing a great team, but we want to play. And, the best window might have been able to play this afternoon. That probably doesn't vibe well with ticket sales and whatnot. So we probably have to sit around and play the waiting game, unless for some reason things get drastic and they want to make an early call. But we're out here right now working out a prospect for the draft, and it's pretty ominous. It's very fast clouds and a dark sky, and I think it's going to be interesting. It might be a little bit of a toss-up on whether we can get this thing in or not.
That's interesting. I wanted to follow up on that because I didn't know you guys were working on a draft prospect today. Obviously, Tony, with your knowledge of the college game, the College World Series going on right now, how much do you see yourself being involved in the draft process this year with the Giants?
I think, just a part of conversations. And the one thing that for a couple years now that will be a little bit different, or I guess unique insight, is I got to know a lot of these kids as people and met their families, and then kids that I maybe signed or committed know this guy real well, because what you don't want is any surprises with a recruit or a draft pick or anything like that. You don't want to see Bryce as this mature, very well-spoken, well-rounded kid, and then he shows up and there's kind of a bruise there that you didn't recognize. And so just having extra knowledge, I think, can help for the next few years. But these scouts work their butt off, and they're there all the time. They're taking notes. They break down video. So I certainly am not going to supersede anyone with my opinion on like a skill set or anything like that. But I did have to put together teams and, again, got to know some of these guys character-wise. And I think we're trying to push forward for a theme, too, of kind of what's our brand. So it'll be fun to be in those conversations, but by no means am I going to be a huge cog in the whole deal.
Looking forward to this year's draft, Giants number 4 overall pick, and looking forward to today's game. If you are able to get it in, Tony, stay dry. Go out there and get a win. First opportunity for the sweep. So appreciate you joining us this morning and taking some time out of your schedule.
Yeah, you bet, guys. Pick 4, 29, and 55. So you can get some dudes out of that. So that's an exciting thing coming around the bend. But we'll focus on trying to keep playing better ball.
Absolutely. We'll check back in with you in about a month. Really appreciate it. There he is, Tony Vitello, skipper of your San Francisco Giants. We can react to everything he said about the bullpen, Carson Wisenhunt, Bryce Eldridge, and the future of the San Francisco Giants as they look to complete a sweep for the first time this season. 808 KNBR is the number if you want to check in this morning on the big hit. It's JD, John Dickinson, filling in for Murph right here on the Murph Markus Show on the Sports Leader.